Over 94% of India's working population is part of the unorganized sector. In local terms, organized sector or formal sector in India refers to licensed organizations, that is, those who are registered and pay GST. These include the publicly traded companies, incorporated or formally registered entities, corporations, factories, shopping malls, hotels, and large businesses. Whereas unorganized sector, also known as own account enterprises, refers to all unlicensed, self-employed or unregistered economic activities such as owner-man general stores, handicrafts and handloom workers, rural traders, domestic workers, farmers, etc. Even though it accounted for over 94% of workers, India's unorganized sector created just 57% of India's national domestic product in 2006, or about ninefold less per worker than the organized sector. While the middle and the upper middle class of India enjoy work benefits like maternity leave and pension plans and are guided by labor laws and regulations, India's domestic workers, comprising of women and minors, have to endure abuse and exploitation over a long period of time by their employers. The abuse ranges from withhold of wages to starvation, not allowing time for sleep or rest, not paying adequate wages, and even sexual exploitation.
In today's panel discussion, we will be talking about human dignity and labor. To start off, I would like to say over 74% of India's working population is employed in the unorganized sector. Now, the issue here is, despite 74% of India's working population being employed in the unorganized sector, only 57% of them contribute towards India's GDP.
So, wait, let me be the devil's advocate over here. Don't you guys think that even though these guys they come work in the urban areas, don't you think it's better than working back at their agricultural fields where they have back-breaking work, they have to toil for hours together, and they have uneven hours in a day. So, don't you guys think this is better?
Not necessarily, not all cases, because some people, when they come to the urban environment, they actually go through a lot of suffering. Sometimes there are no labor laws giving them immunity to their employers taking advantage of their lack of education when it comes to the terms and the ethical way of employing someone. So sometimes they do get exploited.
I would like to add on to Abhi's point here. While the middle class and the upper middle class enjoy benefits such as maternity leaves and pension plans in the organized sector, there's no such thing for the people in the unorganized sector. It's not structured. Government isn't doing anything to regulate and put a structure for the unorganized sector. I feel they should be given, they go on through struggles of like working from day to night without breaks. People die of starvation. They don't get adequate wages. There's still child labor going on, bonded labor. There's so much, and India has topped the global slave index. Yeah.
Can I stop you like that? So, don't you think so India claims to be a mixed economy, but we all know there are a lot of capitalistic tendencies. But what I'm trying to say is, in a capitalistic society, don't you think isn't it like basically survival of the fittest?
No, that's not really how we see it, because if you think about it, most of the people are either from backward classes or born into backward families, so they come into the world with disadvantages. It's not really a fair setting for survival of the fittest. Like, a farmer could be born to a farmer's family. And he could have been more skilled than a person who's born to a rich man's family. That doesn't mean
yes, but there are cases where the really poor people have made it big, right? So if they can do it, why can't
yeah,
these
because
guys?
that's very unlikely, and that's unfair to expect that of them.
No,
what the government is supposed to be doing is, instead, knowing the fact that some of these people are coming from an environment like this, and instead of expecting them to survive in an unrealistic world where it's not that easy to survive, instead they should be helping them and backing them up on what they're doing. If you see from the research which we have done, most of these people from this unorganized sector work in the agricultural industry, and what they could do is probably strengthen that industry, because that's a very important industry for India, and there's a lot of revenue coming out of this industry. So instead of expecting them to have a better level of employment working as laborers in urban areas, they can instead be given some economical help if need be in their own agricultural industry.
What I would like to say is, I think we're deviating a little bit from the topic. What I feel is, the government should put a structure. Now, for example, like I already mentioned, 74% is of working classes are in the unorganized sector, right? So amongst them, domestic workers, 90% of them are women. And they've been exploited, they have to endure abuse, they go through sexual exploitation. All of these things need to stop. I feel like, they could probably get the weekends off, and there's no such structure or contract that binds the employer and the employee in the unorganized sector. So if government comes up with laws and regulations, legislation, someone to represent them, people are coming up, people are forming unions. They still don't have a right to form union. They don't have platforms where they can express themselves, tell what they're feeling, what they're going through. There's no platform between the government and them to tell them, address their grievances. But the government should take steps, and which I feel is not happening.
But then again, there's a loophole in that too, because if you think about it, there are actually not maybe unions, but people who represent these. For example, let's take a laborer who helps in construction, a construction worker. Now the people who represent them and who is in charge.
I'm talking about the domestic workers.
I'm
I'm mentioning about the domestic workers here because 90% of them are women, and even you know what the problem is. People even go for minors. You know why they go for minors, especially because they don't question their employers. They would just succumb to whatever the employer asks them to do, and they won't even ask for
Yes,
wages.
there are many cases where these domestic people have in fact been they are being helped. Like their employers, they give them money for their children's education. They give them clothes, extra money during vacations and holidays. So what I'm saying is, what you're trying to say is we need to bring a structure to the unorganized sector. So what do you think? How should the government go?
Maybe a code of conduct, maybe a rule, maybe like a proper law, written law.
So yeah, what I want to do is, what I feel the government should do is, how big corporates and companies give out maternity leaves. There is no such rule for maternity leaves in the unorganized sector.
True.
Now, if a domestic worker just comes, I read this case about this woman called Chanda, and she had to work from 6:30 to 1 every day, even when she was 8 months pregnant. Now, things like this is not acceptable. You wouldn't expect someone in a corporate who does a desk job to do this, but you can expect a woman who's 8 months pregnant to work from 6:30 to 1. That is not acceptable. So there needs to be laws at place where they can also talk about pension plans probably, or things like like even the smallest of things like
Don't you think instead of the government making the unorganized sector structured and whatever you're saying, isn't it better if we actually provide them education at the source and help uplift them from that kind
That's
of...
not
that's-
really counted because that is something the government's doing. Are you talking about education? as
Like,
a-
okay, let's all agree that we're not in an idealistic utopia.
100%.
So in this world, if you either fight or you die. You either fight to become someone or you perish. There is no mediocrity.
Yeah, see, I think we're again deviating from the topic.
Wait, she has a point. What you're trying to say is, what you're basically trying to
Elevate
say
them
is,
to-
if you want, you're saying that if you want the laborer to reach a successful position, you are telling that he needs to do
To
whatever
have a
he
better
can.
life.
So are you saying the government should help him with doing that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the fact that they need to be elevated and shit. But the thing at hand is over 90%, over 74% are employed. The working class in India. Things this drastic cannot happen very quickly.
True.
And I feel we should take smaller steps. Instead of making such drastic measures, smaller steps like bringing in laws in place, bringing in stipulations, workers union for domestic workers, especially women. Over 90% of women are employed, and minors. That needs to stop. Now, though government has passed a law about the child labor, where children below the age of 14 are not allowed to work. That's a very good thing. But still, there are cases of child labor prominent in the northern part of India.